Privileged now to join us here in the studio, former Senator Joe Lieberman. Senator, thanks so much for joining us here.
Glad
Good to see you.
Sean. Thank you.
I want to jump into this that we've seen. We want to get your thoughts on a big revelation last night. We saw Lev Parnas, an associate of Rudy Giuliani, gave very riveting testimony last night on the Rachel Maddow show. A lot of us seen this on MSNBC, saying the president was fully aware of all their actions relating to the Ukraine and that the president only wanted to bring down Joe Biden, not really investigate corruption in Ukraine. Have you seen this? Let's take a listen.
Trump knew exactly what was going on. He was aware of all my movements. I wouldn't do anything without the consent of Rudy Giuliani or the president. I have no intent, I have no reason to speak to any of these officials. I mean, they have no reason to speak to me.
So again, you hear that there. A lot of questions out of this. Again, Parnas basically saying that Trump knew exactly what he was doing here. I want to bring back in the senator here to ask him some questions on this and just kind of get his reaction here. Senator Lieberman, how detrimental do you believe this testimony can be on the eve of the trial? You saw Parnas come out. Of course, the timing on this is another thing that you could talk about. But how detrimental can this be playing into this trial?
Well, it depends on the Senate. I mean, I would say that what Parnas, let's put it this way. Yeah. Parnas provides another piece of evidence to the members of the Senate who are sitting as jurors in this unique trial. I don't think that he said something totally new. And in other words, the situation is broadly understood now. He added some, from his testimony, some evidence to strengthen, if you will, the case. But as with any witness, you've got to evaluate who he is and the truthfulness of what he's saying. But it's relevant. Let me put it that way. If I were sitting as a juror, which I'm not.
Sure, but he also did implicate Vice President Mike Pence. He said that he was privy to much of this, although he has, of course, publicly denied that. Do you think this has any vulnerabilities as the result of this for Mike Pence?
It's an accusation, really, at this point. And I think in the end, what will happen is what we expected would happen in the impeachment trial of President Clinton, in which I sat as a juror in the Senate, which is that the vote would be primarily along party lines. And President Clinton, we expected, would be acquitted, and he was. And I expect that barring some bigger bombshell than what Parnas said last night, President Trump will also be acquitted. If I may just add that, to me, having gone through the 1999 trial of President Clinton, and the framers of the Constitution and their wisdom understood that an impeachment would inherently be political. It's just inevitable. Right. You rally around and against the person, depending on your party. Or faction, as the framers used to say. But the challenge now for this Senate is to try to conduct this trial in a way that is nonpartisan and therefore fair and therefore fulfills the oath the senators are going to take today, which is a very unusual oath. Only one oath you take as a senator when you take office. This Majority Leader Trent Lott, Republican, Minority Leader Tom Daschle, Democrat, working together. We conducted the trial of Bill Clinton in a nonpartisan way. I hope that today's Senate can do the same. It's going to be tougher because it's a much more deeply partisan time.
You think that's the biggest difference there? You're talking about 99 versus today.
Yeah.
You're talking about staying bipartisan. You look at that Senate in 99 with Clinton. You look at what's happening now. What's the difference here? What's changed over the years?
Yeah, well, obviously the charges are different. I mean, President Clinton being charged, one with an immoral act, and the second of violating the laws of perjury. President Trump, something quite different in terms of the whole Ukrainian situation and the allegation that he obstructed Congress. But as partisan as it was in 99, and I will tell you that we actually convened without, as a trial, Senate trial, without rules. We hadn't reached an agreement on the day. We took the oath. Chief Justice Rehnquist was sworn in, And they recessed. And then our two leaders, Lott and Daschle, took us to the old Senate chamber, a historic room in the Capitol, really a museum now. And we met, no staff, no press, just 100 of us. And we talked it out and really said, we got a responsibility here to do this in a fair way. And we agreed on a program or rules and then adopted them. It's going to be harder that afternoon, then the trial began. It's going to be harder to do that this year because the partisanship, for all sorts of reasons, has become much, much deeper.
And we do have to ask, Democrats, of course, are pushing for more witnesses in the Senate trial. Do you think that will undermine any of their previous efforts that they'd made before?
Depends on what the witnesses say. There was a similar disagreement in '99, incidentally. And the rules originally adopted that I just referred to didn't talk about witnesses at all, because the leaders, again, Lott and Daschle, quite wisely decided, let's get this thing going, and let's see where we are. And as it started, we all felt pretty good about how it was going, and there was a negotiated agreement to call witnesses, but not to bring them into the Senate. They were subject to 3 witnesses, including Monica Lewinsky, to a deposition. President's lawyers were there, House lawyers were there, and we watched it on videotape after it was done. That was a compromise, may happen again, but I think there'll be a bigger fight over it this year.
Last question for you. We talk about the impeachment issue here. High crimes, misdemeanors.
Yeah.
Do you see an impeachable offense?
Well, I mean, I'll talk about the law, but I'll rush to the end and answer your question, which is just like I hope the members of the Senate who are pledged to do impartial justice have not reached a conclusion yet, even though we expect it'll break on party lines. I'm trying not to reach a conclusion. And the truth is, as happened last night with Mr. Parnas, there may be more evidence come out to affect it. But here's what I concluded before the Clinton trial. That the founders of the country really did not want impeachment to happen too often, because impeachment was an intervention by the limited number of members of Congress in the foundation of the system they were creating for us, elections. And if you take somebody out of office, president, between elections, you better have a good reason. In my opinion, it wasn't even to necessarily find a crime, although if you found a crime, it might lead you to the conclusion, President Clinton, for his immoral behavior, was that his continuance in office was not a danger to the country. And I think that's the threshold that the members of the Senate have to pass today. And if I may say so without taking a position, because I don't want to, the closer you get to an election, the higher the threshold goes in my case, because the voters will soon have their say this November.
Yeah, not
that
too
is
far
very
away.
true. Senator Joe Lieberman, thank you so much for joining us.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing news channel, now in 65 million homes. Get Newsmax TV on all the major cable systems or go to newsmaxtv.com and click on the Find Newsmax tab to locate us. Remember, Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.